we're drinking a Manhattan, which is my go-to drink at the end of most nights. Old Overholt, up, with our house-branded cherries. Perfect.
She said it's compensation.
I was born into this. My dad, when I was growing up, was the president of a company called Restaurant Associates. So they used to do the US Open, and here in New York, the Sea Grill, Rock Center Cafe, all the restaurants in the MetLife building uptown. And I always loved it. I used to go to work with him every Saturday and just kind of mess around and probably screw things up more than anything else. But it was one of those things where I just kind of knew from a really, really early age. When I was 13, I got my first real job working at Baskin-Robbins, which was an amazing job. Working at an ice cream shop in New York during the winter is one of the easiest jobs in the entire world. Then I was at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, where I was a host and a dishwasher. Then I had a job at Spago in Beverly Hills, where I was a busboy. A job at another Wolfgang Puck restaurant there called Aubergine, where I was a prep cook. I was a server at Tribeca Grill. This was all while I was going to Cornell. Left Cornell, moved to Spain for a while, went to a hotel school there, and then came back and joined Danny's company at Tableau, where I was the maitre d' for about 2 years. I left to go pursue a much bigger company, Restaurant Associates, the same one that my dad was in. Because as much as I loved Danny's company, I wanted to work for a much bigger company and make sure that I loved it because of what it was, as opposed to just because I love a lot of things. I get into whatever I'm doing. I was a purchaser, an accountant, and then returned to open the Museum of Modern Art. Now, my dad's career, and this will be relevant in a moment, he started at Restaurant Associates, which was fine dining. Not at the level of Madison Park, but fine dining. And then he ran Wolfgang Puck's company for a while, and then took over Au Bon Pain, and now Uno's, formerly Pizzeria Uno's. But so, from a level of dining, it became more and more and more casual, and I realized that I got to see him more and more and more as he was involved in less formal restaurants. So I had it in my head that I wanted nothing to do with fine dining. I knew that I didn't ever want to be at the 4-star level for sure, probably not the 3-star level either. And when I went to MoMA, I told Danny just that. I said, hey, I think I'm ready to be a GM, which was probably a little ridiculous because I was 24 at the time. And I said, but I want nothing to do with fine dining. I want to be involved in the more casual concepts. And so I opened Cafe 2 and Terrace 5, the two basically cafeterias at MoMA. And somehow between then and now, I ended up running Madison Park. I mean, you have those moments in your life, right? We did a beer dinner with Garrett Oliver a couple months ago, and in his speech to the crowd, he talked about that night. And he was saying, it's one thing to see your team win the World Series. He's like, I'm a New Yorker. Every time the Yankees win the World Series, I'm overjoyed. It's another thing when it's some of your closest friends. And that night, it felt like we'd won the World Series. And, for us, it was it was intense. We knew we wanted to be a 4-star restaurant, and we tried to do it during the depths of the recession, such that, we got 4 stars in September. For the 3 months before we got 4 stars, we were wondering whether we were going to be able to make it. Our dining room was half full at most. We were running a restaurant with 4-star expenses, but without the business to support them, and without the demand to support them. And it's scary, we'd been working on this for 4 years and putting everything we had into it. And then suddenly you're looking at, your partner and the people that work there, and you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, there's only so much longer we can go. We were losing money every month. And so 4 stars was great because it, affirmed our efforts. What we were trying to do was create a 4-star restaurant that combined hospitality and excellence, and pushed both of those as hard as we possibly could, but push them evenly, which was kind of a disconnect from what had been done before. So A, it was affirming that, okay, what we believe in, people also believe in. 2, or B, it's just one of the greatest things you can do in this business. So to be able to have done that is gratifying on the highest level. But C, the fact that it meant we could stay in business. Because essentially the next day our book was full, and thank God we've basically been booked ever since. The cookbook has been a very, very emotional thing. I went to a restaurant I used to work at not too long ago. I went because my friend was in town and this place was really important to me, and I wanted to show her, like, hey, this was a really big part of my life. And I went there and I was so disappointed. The service wasn't as friendly, the food didn't taste as good, the place wasn't as clean. And I went into this very contemplative period for a few days where, I mean, this is a place that I invested thousands of hours of my life. And then it was nothing like it was when I left it. And it was kind of the first time I realized, as clearly as I did in that moment, how temporary what we do is. You know, I think of the restaurant business as art. I do. I think that what we do to create an experience, it's like theater. But when you look at it, you have actors with movies. They have the movie. It is what it is, and it will never change. A writer with a book, it is what it is, it will never change. A painter, you look at Mona Lisa now, and it's exactly, maybe a little faded. Restaurants, on the other hand, no matter how much work we put into something, it's only preserved in the memories of those who experienced it. And every restaurant will either close, or get sold, or cease to exist at some point. And it was in that moment that I realized for the first time how powerful the idea of making this book was for us as a restaurant, but for Daniel and me personally. Essentially, it finally gave us an opportunity to memorialize what we've created. And the last 5 years have been some of the most exciting years of my entire life. And the book is a combination of recipes, but also our stories. This restaurant, I think what our greatest strength is the alignment and the relationship between the dining room and the kitchen. And that's driven by Daniel and my relationship. But if we're going to do a cookbook, it had to tell both stories. So it's 4 seasonal chapters of recipes interwoven with 4 chapters of narrative text. And it tells our stories, our successes, our failures, our idiot moves along the way. And we're really, really proud of it. And it's taken 2 years to create. And in the spirit of everything we do here, it's done entirely by our team. Our photographer, our designer, the people here wrote it and tested the recipes. I can't wait. We're really excited. I love creating things. I love having an idea and working on it with a bunch of people and seeing it through. And that's everything from how we're going to present a dish to a Kentucky Derby party to a magazine that our entire staff works on together. 11 Madison Park, I think, is one of the more difficult restaurants in the world to work in. But I also think that the morale here is some of the highest because we've put together a team that believes in the spirit of our endeavor and pushes really, really, really hard to achieve it. And you talk about 4 stars. That night when we're listening to music and spraying champagne and you're working with a group of people that inspire you, that hopefully you inspire, getting to share and celebrate together an accomplishment that you just poured your entire being into accomplishing. Once you've experienced that moment once or twice, that's all the inspiration you need to continue pushing. So it's about building a team. It's about creating things that are cool. It's about believing in what you have to add to what's already out there, and then just pursuing it with a reckless abandon. And that's why I love what I do.
Be a space cadet.